Hello, guys. Welcome. Let me get everything up here. Let me see. Hold on one second. I got to get your chat up here. Hi. Hello. When you guys get in the room, just give me a quick shout out. Let me know you guys are here so I'm not talking to an empty room. Welcome. Today is Thursday. We have our live at 3. So welcome to everybody that's joining us. Hi, Ramses. Nice of you to join. So today we got some things to go over. Before we go into today's lesson, I want to talk just a little bit about something that happened this week that was just mind-boggling to me. And I want to kind of discuss it and get your feelings on it. Hi, Cool Motion. Thanks for joining us. Hi, Butterfly Queen. Thanks for joining. Oh, thank you for coming. I appreciate it. So here's a situation that happened. Hi, Letitia. Here's a situation that happened in North Carolina this week that just blew my mind. I mean, we're short-staffed everywhere. We all know it. And, you know, we're all working the best that we can. But in this particular situation in North Carolina, they only had 2 CNAs and 1 LPN show up for a shift for 93 or 98 patients. It was, just insane, right? There's no way that a staff of 3 can provide adequate care to all of those patients in a nursing home. This wasn't an ALF. This was a nursing home. And apparently, from the news articles that I read, right, some of the patients, they were calling out for help, and there was no staff. I mean, nobody was responding, and they got scared because they're in a facility and it doesn't seem like there's anybody there. So they started calling 911. So the officers arrived at the facility and realized how incredibly short-staffed it was, that it was unsafe patient environment, and they called in paramedics and fire department and things like public servants to come in and help, and the patients, to make sure the patients got adequate care. Well, as these public servants came in and started assessing patients, they found 2 that were deceased and 2 that were in critical condition. So this had very, very real world, serious consequences. So yeah, I mean, we've all talked about how horrible it is to be short-staffed, and we always tend to think about it from our point of view, right? So we're running our butts off. There isn't enough supplies. We don't have enough help. There's no way I can get to all these tasks. And we tend to kind of center it on us, what an inconvenience this is for us, right? But I want to kind of challenge you guys to take a second and think about this from the patient's point of view. And this is something that we don't normally really think about or kind of get to the bottom of, because we're the ones that are working, and we're the ones that are inconvenienced, and we're the ones that, are kind of suffering for this. But think about the patients for a second. Can you imagine? Now, remember that nursing homes, for the most part, are paid for by the patients themselves. Yes, Medicaid does help those that have exhausted their funds, but for the most part, if the patient has any money at all, that money is going to be used for that medical care in a nursing home. So can you imagine paying $6,000, $8,000 a month for care, and there's nobody there, nobody to care for you? And worse, because of that lack of care, you are critically ill. You cannot breathe. You are in the process of undergoing a very acute situation, and nobody is there to help. I mean, can you imagine how frightening that would be for the patients? And what really struck me about this situation, and guys, this can happen anywhere, right? And the reason that they gave was because it was inclement weather. And I get that. I mean, North Carolina doesn't have like a ton of snow in this area. It doesn't happen very often, but it happened. So they're short-staffed because of COVID. They're short-staffed because of the weather. I mean, it was kind of a catastrophic calamity of events. Just a lot of things happened at one time, and they're stuck with this situation. But here's what struck me about this, is that when the police officers got there and they called to the public servants, hey, come help this nursing home, bad situation, we got these 4 residents that need immediate care. I mean, this is really, really bad, come help. At that time, administration must have been notified. They had to have been. Either no one notified administration, which is a big problem, or administration was notified and did not come in. Now, I want you to think about that for a second. You have just been told that there is no staff at your facility, and you can't be bothered to come in. Now, there may be circumstances here that I am not aware of, and I'm willing to admit that. I do not have 100% information here. Okay, so I'm willing to admit that. But I'm thinking about this from that point of view, that if public service was asked to, or, came in and called for help, I would imagine that administration had to have been notified at that time. And, that's what staffing agencies are for. The DON is an RN. They could have come in and performed patient care, or at least assessments or whatever. That there's a lot of ways that this situation could have been addressed. And yes, they may have needed the paramedics' help because despite their best efforts, they couldn't get past that staffing shortage. And that happens too. I'm fully aware that, this may not have been able to be overcome easily. I understand that. But to me, it just seems like somewhere along the line, the ball dropped, right? Either, the LPN at the facility didn't call administration, or maybe they called administration didn't do anything, but somewhere along the line, there was a catastrophic failure, and it was the patients that paid the price. 2 patients died. 2 others are in critical condition with something that may have responded to treatment if caught earlier. So when we're talking about being short-staffed, we have to think about this beyond ourselves. We have to think about this as what kind of consequences could this have to the patients that we are caring for? And if you are in a situation where you absolutely know for sure that the patients are not getting care, like you've got a whole wing that you didn't even go down and there's nobody else here, so who else is going to do it? Then you need to be sounding the alarm. You need to be telling the nurse that you're working with, this is unsafe. And our patients are going to pay the price. So we really do need to work on this system so that the people who are most at risk, who are putting their faith in us, if they could take care of themselves at home, trust me guys, they'd be home. They don't want to be there. They do not want to be there. They want to be home. If they could care for themselves, they would be home, but they can't. So they're in our nursing home, trusting us with their very lives, and we've got to do a better job at protecting those lives, right? So that's kind of my soapbox for today, is that short-staffed is short-staffed, and we're all working short-staffed because there just aren't enough caregivers to go around. So you need to be recruiting. You need to tell everybody you know how great it is to be a CNA and that they need to come join you so that we can get out of this short staffing situation. It's never going to get better if you guys are out there bad-mouthing being a CNA. You need to elevate the profession so we can recruit more people. Sound good? But when you are working short-staffed and you identify a dangerous situation, Be vocal. Stand up for your patients. Because I never, ever want to read another newspaper article that says that patients gave their lives because there was a failure of communication somewhere. I mean, that's just horrible, 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 horrible stuff. And my heart goes out to those families. If you were affected by that tragedy, for all of healthcare, from the bottom of my heart, I am so sorry to hear that. And we are working on being better. I promise you, I'm out here doing what I can every day to make sure that as an industry, we do better. And we can do better, and we should do better. Okay, so there's my soapbox for the day. So let's see who's here. Natalie. Hi, Miss Pat. I'm looking for your video on how to assist the client to take medication. I'm sorry, Natalie, I don't have any information on medication, self-administration, or med tech, or assisting with medications, because the laws are different in every state. Now, I used to have a course for the 4-hour med tech in Florida. Then it got changed to 6-hour. And I'll probably be doing that sometime in the future again, but we do not have any videos on that right now because the laws are so different in every state, and you are required to take a classroom-based program to get that certification. You cannot do it online, okay? Blue says, hi, Miss Patty. After I heard about that nursing home case, I told my family I'm so glad I'm not that nursing home administrator right now. She has a major headache right now. You are not kidding. And they deserve to have a major headache. First of all, they should have been notified of the staffing problem. Second of all, they should have worked hard to fix that staffing problem. Third of all, barring, if they could not fix the problem, then they sure should have been on site to help mitigate the problem. So as far as I'm concerned, that administrator has zero excuses. Zero. If the LPN did not tell the administrator that there was a problem, then you've got a staff education problem. But any way you look at it, that administrator has no excuse. And yes, they should have a headache. They should absolutely have a headache. And I mean, thank God I'm not going to be sitting in judgment of that person. That's all I'll say, because there is no excuse. Perez Alma says, thanks for the great job you do. Well, thank you. Jacqueline Lopez, I'm taking my CNA state exam today. How exciting. And you stopped by to let us know. That is awesome. Well, we wish you lots of luck. So good vibes out to you. Good vibes. Make sure you let us know how you do. Jennifer, hi Jennifer. Cheryl says, thank you, Miss Patty, for all you do. Your videos helped me ace the Connecticut exam last week. That's awesome. Congratulations. And Jennifer says, okay, so we're going to get into some questions now, and I've got something to talk to you guys about in just a few minutes about the written test. So we're going to get there in a minute, but let me get some of these questions out of the way. Jennifer says, so when you're draining a catheter, why is it so important that the tip, where the urine is coming out of, can't touch anything? The barrier, the floor, all that, all you're doing is draining it. So let me explain this, Jennifer. I have a whole lecture on this, okay? So remember that the catheter that's inside the patient, okay? So you've got a patient, you've got a catheter that's in the bladder coming out of the patient, attached to drainage tubing, attached to a bag, and you're going to open that system to drain the urine out. Okay, so that's a closed system. So one end is inside the patient. The other end is what you're draining. And in between, it's all closed, right? So there's no way for bacteria to get in there because it's closed. It's safe. But when you open that drainage port to allow the urine to come out, anything that port touches could contaminate it. Now, if bacteria gets on the port and then in the bag, well, urine is the ideal breeding environment for pathogens. It's got enzymes and proteins that these pathogens, particularly bacteria, can use to procreate. Because bacteria don't need little boy bacteria, little girl bacteria to have baby bacteria. It doesn't work like that. All they need is the right environment and the proteins and enzymes necessary for reproduction, and then they literally zip themselves in half, and now we've got two. So when you're emptying the drainage bag, if you let that port touch anything, then it can be contaminated, and that contamination is now in an ideal environment. Well, as these bacteria multiply, they start to climb, and they get higher in the bag, and they get in the tubing, and they get in the catheter, and before you know it, they're in the bladder. And now we've got a major urinary tract infection because it's not one or two bacteria that's invading. Remember, they've multiplied all the way up. So when it jumps out into the bladder, there are hundreds of trillions of bacteria. So this is an overwhelming infection that happens like that. So this is why it's so important that we don't let that port touch anything. I hope that helps you. Milagros says, hi, Patty. I'm doing my CNA state exam February 12th. Oh, wow. Congratulations. Good luck. Lots of good vibes to you. Keishia, I think. Good afternoon, Miss Patty. I brought the book and couldn't find the code in the front of the book. I'm so sorry. We no longer give the course away with the purchase of the book. We stopped doing that probably a year and a half ago. We were only doing that when we were building the course, when it was brand new. But now that it's finished, the course is separate from the book. But most of the content that's in the course is in the book. The course just makes it interactive and has a few extra things like my classroom lectures. So you can go look at, we have, I don't know, the first 10 or 11 lessons are free. So go ahead and take a look at that. And if you find it's helpful, you might want to enroll. Kelsey says, I'm taking my exam on February 17th. Ooh, exciting, Kelsey. We wish you lots of luck. Amarachi says, thank you. Butterfly Queen says, when is your next class? My next classroom class will start February 7th in Spring Hill, Florida. That's where I'm located. Krista says, hi, Miss Patty. Have you had any response on the state test I was asking you about? No, I haven't. I don't. Not yet. I've been like super crazy with a lot of projects. So no, I don't. I'm sorry. Laura says, I would like to buy the book. How much is it? Laura, our book is $38 and it's available on our website, foryourcna.com. It's number 4. So this logo right here, the number 4, yourcna.com. If you go on there, just click on shop. My book is on there. You can kind of take a little tour. I've got a slide there that shows you some of the pages in there, and it kind of tell you what to expect. Okay. Peace says, hi, Patty. How are you? I'm perfect today. It's a beautiful day. The weather is gorgeous. I'm feeling good. It's my middle son's birthday, so that's awesome. Happy birthday. And it's just been a wonderful day. Let's see here. I love watching your video, but your audio mic is cracking, giving out poor audio. Oh, I'm so sorry. Is everybody else having trouble with that? Is everybody else having trouble hearing me? I am so sorry. I might be having technical difficulties. I'm still working on the tech. I'm a nurse. I am not a tech guru. So putting all this together, guys, and I do this all by myself. I don't have a team. So bear with me. I'm still learning all the tech. So I'm doing the best I can. But if you're having trouble hearing me, I do apologize. I'll work on that for the upcoming sessions. And Jivanette says, I'm taking my CNA February 1st. Wow, congratulations. That's super exciting, right around the corner. Make sure you're practicing. So that's a great segue into what I want to talk to you about today. So today I want to kind of go over a couple of test questions and discuss. So this would be for the written test. This is for the written test, okay? So I want to kind of talk about the types of questions you would find on the written test, how those questions are constructed, and then we're going to kind of deconstruct it so I can maybe explain to you why certain answers would be disqualified. So we're going to go over two sample questions. Now understand, these are not actual test questions. I need to be very clear about that. You will not find these questions on the state exam. These are sample questions. And that's really important because nobody can give you the questions from the state exam. Now that's because of security, right? So it's a test. It's supposed to be a test. If we gave you all the questions up front, it's not a test, right? So understand that these are sample questions, okay? So let me show you. We'll go through the first one. So let's see here. Let me turn it on. I'm going to move to the side, and you should be able to see. Can you guys see that on the screen? Can you see the question here? Let me know if you can see the question. Just put a Y in the chat if you can see it. It's probably super small, right? So the question is, you received the following assignment. Which of the following would you do first? Okay, so that's the question. So this is going to give us 4 choices, and that means that we have to do all 4. Because that word first, okay, that word first, what it's asking you to do is prioritize care. It means that you're going to do all of them. So they want you to figure out which one is most important or most immediate, or what, this is all about prioritization. Now, these are not like just pulled from the air. This list right here, I'm going to take this down for just a second. We're going to come back to this question in a second. This list right here, it says nurse aid, written test, content, outline. You guys have access to this. It's in the candidate handbook. So if you have not looked at the candidate handbook, you probably should, right? So this is Prometrics. And if you're testing with Pearson VUE, they have their own. If you're testing with HD or Headmaster, they have their own. But in your candidate handbook, they actually have the test outline. You need to be aware of this, right? But each one of these, let me get this a little bit closer, you can see that there's different sections. There's role of the nurse aide, there's promotion of safety, there's promotion of function, there is basic nursing care, and then over here you've got providing specialized care for residents with changes. Okay, so you have this outline. Now, all of the test questions, when they're writing test questions, okay, there's a group of people that get together and they write these questions, and then they pass them around, and they make sure that they meet the criteria, that they're not misleading or vague, and then they have to be tested, right? But the people that are writing them, they actually have this test plan in front of them when they're writing the question, and they read one of the checkpoints, and they write a question based on that specific checkpoint. This is how I write all of my questions. They're all taken from this test plan. So let's look at the sample question again, right? So the sample says you received the following assignment. Which of the following would you do first? So what I'm going to show you here is this question is actually from the role of the nurse aide. Whoops, let me come over here. The role of the nurse aide, personal responsibility, time management, and prioritization. Okay? So that's where I got the information for this question. So the answer choices would be something like this. Remember it says, okay, so let's go back to the question real quick. You received the following assignment. Which of the following would you do first? So here's your 4 patients. A resident who needs to be assisted to the toilet. Well, that sounds pretty good, right? Answering a call light. Well, that sounds pretty good. Delivering a snack to a diabetic patient. Well, they're diabetic, so they probably need a snack. And obtaining weekly weight measurements. Well, that's probably going to be important because the nurse has to, you know, make medication decisions and treatment decisions based on weight. So all of these are pretty important. How in the world would we know which one to do first? So let's go through them really quick. So the resident who needs to be assisted to a toilet, well, when you gotta go, you gotta go, right? So that's pretty high on the list. I would say right now, just thinking about it, that might be number 1. But let's keep going. Never stop at the first answer, okay? Because a lot of times that first answer is designed, these are in a specific order. That first answer is designed to get you to stop reading. So if you stop reading there, it sounds reasonable. When you got to go, you got to go. Sounds like the right answer. I'm going to pick that one. So if you stopped there, you would actually be wrong. Let's go to the next one. Answering a call light. Well, that sounds pretty routine. I mean, my gosh, call lights go off all day long, and it's usually, I want a drink, I need a blanket, can you get my pen? It fell on the floor. My roommate won't quit snoring, right? So they're all very benign, very boring, very non-emergency type of things. But every so often, that call light might be an emergency. I fell. I need help. I'm having chest pain. I need help. So the call lights can always, 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 always be considered an emergency until proven otherwise. Okay. Now, if you've worked in healthcare, it's really, really easy to think that A is the right answer. It's not. B is the right answer, because call light should always be considered an emergency until proven otherwise. Now, the other two, these are what we call benign distractors. And every question is going to have two benign distractors. Now, what that means is it's not really actively trying to trick you. A is actively trying to trick you. It is. But C, it's not really actively trying to trick you, but it's going to do so in kind of a inobtrusive way, okay? It actually added in that a diabetic resident. So now you're thinking in your mind, diabetic, they may have low blood sugar, I've got to hurry and take care of that because it could be an emergency situation. It doesn't say it's an emergency situation. It just says provide a delivering a snack to a diabetic patient. It doesn't say anything about it being an emergency situation. So if you assumed just by that little statement, diabetic resident, that it made it emergency, you're reading into the question. You're putting something in there that's not there. So be careful on the written test. Don't do that, right? Don't add stuff to the answer that doesn't exist. And then D is a benign distractor. It says obtaining weekly weight measurements. Now, in your mind, you might think, well, that's something that the nurse needs, and you may put a sense of importance on it, but it's not as important as answering that call light, because remember, call lights are always, always, always an emergency until proven otherwise. So that makes B the correct answer for this question. Do you guys understand how the thought process goes into this? So when you're looking at a question on the state exam, or really anywhere, right? Because this actually applies to everything, every written test. When you're looking at it, you need to immediately try to find your two benign distractors, things that are trying to kind of, catch you off guard or get you off the scent, right? Try to find the two that don't work and totally disregard them. And then go back to the two that you can narrow it down, right? Narrow it down to. And then go back and look at the question again. So this question says, which of the following would you do first? Well, toileting a resident, that's important. Answering a call light, that's important. But which one is more important? Which one do I have to do first? Because there's only one of me, 4 tasks, 1 CNA, I got to prioritize. So that's how we have to figure out how to answer these written questions. So let's see here. Blue says, Patty, I've been in a situation where a diabetic resident wanted his snack and turned on his call light. Yeah, I have seen it. Absolutely. I've got a whole lecture on diabetes. If you haven't watched it, it's worth watching. And I'm going to retape it. It's a very old lecture. I'm going to retape it. But there's a reason that diabetic patients crave sweets. And it's not what you think. It actually isn't. And I'll try to get to that lecture in the next couple weeks and get that reposted for you guys, because I think you might find it very interesting. Their cells are literally dying. Literally dying. And their brain is responding to that. And that's what triggers the cravings. So let's take a look at one more question. Here we go. You're assigned to transfer a patient into a wheelchair. What is an important principle to remember before completing this task? So let's see where this question came from, okay? This question came from, where is it? Checkpoint 2, promotion of safety, right here, promotion of safety. D, which is right here, D, number 2, accident prevention, including fall prevention protocols. So that's what this question is all about. That's the checkpoint that this question came from. So let's see what the answer choices are. Tell the resident she must stay where you put her so she doesn't get lost. Tell the resident that she doesn't need shoes because she isn't walking. Ensure the wheelchair is locked before leaving the patient, or make sure the patient is in a visible location at all times for safety. So I'm going to let you think about this for just a second. See if you can guess. Any guesses? And I apologize, guys, because I'm using a new program so I can do these on-screen things, but my chat is delayed. So when you type something in, it takes about 30 seconds before it shows up on my screen. So that's why I have to kind of delay a little bit, because I'm waiting to see if you guys are responding. All right, so let's look at these. Let's see if we can narrow this down a little bit, okay? Let's see if we can narrow it down. So let's look at A. Tell the resident she must stay where you put her so she doesn't get lost. All right, so I'm going to explain to you a little clue why this is the wrong answer. It sounds reasonable, doesn't it? But the reason that this is the wrong answer has everything to do with the last 5 words. So she doesn't get lost. That is called a qualifying statement. Now, beware of qualifying statements. If an answer has a qualifying statement, things like for, so, because, the reason that statement is on there is to make it look like a much more attractive choice. So anytime you see because, for, so, that type of thing, take that completely off of the statement. Just cover it up. Get rid of it. Because any statement that has to have a qualifier doesn't stand on its own. Does that make sense? It's not the right answer because it doesn't stand on its own. Patients are allowed to, they have the right of self-determination. Your patient is allowed to go where they want to go because they're an adult. We don't have the right to restrict their movement. Now, I want to qualify that by saying I'm talking about patients that don't have dementia, patients that are able to identify safety risks, make their own decisions, competent. That's what we call competent adults, okay? Dementia is a totally different situation. And that's not, our question here doesn't have anything about dementia. So remember, don't read anything into the question that's not already there. So if in your mind, you're picturing a dementia patient, you change the question. Question doesn't say anything about dementia. So A is not right because we don't tell patients they must stay where we put them. That's a little rude. I mean, if I came into your house tomorrow and I said, you must sit at your dining room table and you're not allowed to move, you'd probably kick me out of your house because, you know, I don't have the right to tell you what you're going to do with your own body, right? So A is not correct. And anytime you see so, because, for, that type of thing, we have to look at that very suspiciously because that's a qualifying statement. So let's get down to D for a second because you'll notice D also has a qualifier. Make sure the patient is in a visible location at all times for safety. Remember, anytime you have that qualifier, you got to get rid of it. Got to get rid of it. So take the for safety off. Make sure the patient is in a visible location at all times. Well, that doesn't sound like a bad thing, but what if the patient wants to go to an activity? What if the patient wants to go to a meal? What if the patient wants to visit with her family? I mean, do we really have the right to do that? And remember, the question doesn't say anything about the patient not being competent. Don't add that in. So I don't think D is the right answer here either, because it's got that qualifier, and I really don't have the right to restrict the patient's mobility, right? So let's take A and D off the table. Let's see what we're left with. We may have to add them back in. We'll see, but let's see what we're left with. So B, tell the resident she doesn't need shoes because she isn't walking. Well, one of our principles, if you followed my program at all, you know shoe rules. One of our principles is when the patient's feet hit the floor, we talk about their shoes, and slipper socks are never enough because slipper socks do not protect the feet from harm, and they do not protect against pathogen transfer. So just like you wouldn't want to get into bed with your shoes on because your shoes are icky, they've walked everywhere, you don't want the patient to get into bed with slipper socks on because their slipper socks are icky if they've walked everywhere, right? So it also, at the end of the statement, has a qualifier. Because, remember, we have to pay attention to any statements that have so, because, or for, because those are qualifying statements. Okay, so I'm not real happy with B either, but let's wait a second. I mean, she really isn't walking. She's in a wheelchair, so maybe. Let's come back to that one. C, ensure the wheelchair is locked before leaving the patient. Well, okay, maybe. That sounds reasonable, right? If the patient goes to get up and the wheelchair isn't locked, she will probably fall because the wheelchair is going to roll. So that could be a safety issue. So I kind of like that one. I think that might be a good one. So is there anything else that I like better? No, not really. I'm not going to tell the resident she must stay where I put her. I'm not going to make sure the patient's in a visible location at all times because maybe she wants to go to activities. I don't want to tell her that she doesn't need shoes because she really does. So ensure the wheelchair is locked before leaving the patient. That sounds like a safety issue. I'm going to vote for that one. So in this scenario, C would be the right answer. Okay, so you guys kind of understand a little bit more about how these questions are written and what their mindset is when they're creating these questions and how they're going to use words to help distract you from what they're actually asking. If you can understand that and kind of cut through all of that and make sure that the answer you choose fits the question that's being asked, you'll do good on the state exam. And if you remember, we've gone over this before, right? Let me pull this up. The 5 things that they're grading us on the written exam is patient rights, safety, knowing your role, knowing normals, and infection control. If you remember these and you look at each question that you're asked with these 5 things in mind, you'll be able to figure out pretty quickly what they're asking and what they're trying to get to. So I really hope that deep dive into the questions, the written questions, helped you guys a little bit. Denise says one more, please. I didn't have time to create one more. I'm so sorry, Denise, but I got something for you. If you go onto my website, foryourcna.com, remember this guy right here? Whoops. This guy right here. foryourcna.com. It's the number 4, YOURCNA.com. I gotta put that on my screen here in a minute. foryourcna.com. Under training, so I've got like menu options at the top. Under training, I've got a CNA practice test. 60 questions, multiple choice, written like the exam, and if you take the test all the way through, so you're not going to get to see your, whether your answers are right or wrong. It's like a real test. So you're going to go through all 60 questions, get to the end, hit submit, finish and submit, and then it's going to show you the questions, your answer, and the right answer, and underneath each question, I actually tell you which one of these checkpoints it is associated with. I have one question for each of these. So if you want more questions, Denise, go take my practice. It's free. Why wouldn't you take it? I mean, even if you're a CNA, go take it. It's fun. Go take my practice test. You don't have to sign in. I'm not collecting email addresses. There's nothing. Just go take the test. And it'll give you a really good understanding of how the test questions are going to be worded. And if you get it wrong, it's going to help you kind of understand why you got it wrong. Okay? I hope that helps you guys. So let's see here. Laura, most of you said C, a couple D's, but most said C. Very good. Laura says lock the brakes for safety reasons. Absolutely. Blue says I would go with C, but if you leave the wheelchair locked after you transfer her, that might be a restraint. Actually, no. So let me explain this, Blue, and I actually talk about this in my classes as well. Floors are rarely completely level. Wooden floors warp over time, right, with moisture. So if you're on a wooden floor, it's probably going to be a little bit wavy. Concrete floors break with settling. So it's very, very common to have floors that are not completely level. Now, if you've got a wheelchair that's unlocked and a patient in that wheelchair and they're on an unlevel floor, they will roll. And if it's really unlevel, which does happen from time to time, as they roll, they're going to pick up momentum. And whatever they hit, they may hit it with some force. And that can cause injuries. In fact, one of the biggest lawsuits here in Florida was exactly because of that. Because an unlocked wheelchair with an immobile patient was situated in a place that it was able to roll downstairs, and the patient ultimately succumbed from her injury. She actually died from it. So I can't imagine. Oh my gosh, talk about torture. Oh, that would be absolutely just heartbreaking. Can you imagine not being able to move and watching these steps get closer and closer and closer and closer and closer, and you know you're going to go down them and there's nothing you can do? Talk about torture. Oh my gosh, that's just mind-boggling. So that's one of the reasons that locking the wheelchair when you leave it is a safety concern. Never considered a restraint, okay? If the patient can move about on their own, it's not a restraint. They can unlock it, go wherever they want. If they can't move about on their own, it wouldn't be a restraint because you're not limiting their motion. They don't have that motion. They don't have that ability. I hope that helps you. So let's see here. Monique says, good afternoon, Miss Patty. Shalom, everyone. Shalom. Denise said, see here, Blue Jedi says, what are some things the CNA needs or should know when working in home health care? I know it's a very different environment from a nursing home. Oh, Blue, I could talk for an hour on home health care. In fact, let me do this. Next week, we will talk about home care. Just for you, Blue, okay? But I'm going to tell you that next week's going to be a little bit special. I'm going to be out of town. I'm actually going to a conference of state leaders for career and technical education, and it ends on Thursday. So I'm going to come to you live after that conference, but it's not going to be here in my normal studio. I'm actually probably going to have to join you from my phone because I'll be mobile. I'll try to take my laptop and see if I can find a place to connect to Wi-Fi. I don't know. But I will join you next week. It just may be a little bit different format. And I may not be able to see your comments as well next week, so bear with me. Remember, technology is not really my friend. I'm trying to learn how to work with it, but I'll do what I can to see your questions and answer them. But Blue, I will talk about home care next week, okay? So we'll do a deep dive into home care. So before we go, let's say some congratulations. So these are the people that passed the state exam this week, in addition to the ones that just told me on our live, which is super exciting. Congratulations to you guys. Great job. So Kayla Holmes passed this week. Great job. David Tarifa passed this week. Fantastic. Congratulations. Cancer Chica also passed this week. Julissa P. Tasavia Clemens. Now, Tasavia actually posted a comment on a comment. And Tasavia said that she passed her test way back on November 17th with the help of our videos. And I didn't know, so I didn't get a chance to congratulate her. So Tasavia, if you are watching this, congratulations to you. Shelly King, great job. Kenya, fantastic work. And Damika Williams, congratulations on achieving your CNA certification. Welcome to the wonderful world of healthcare. We're super proud of all of you. Now, coming up, we have Jada Hitt, who passed her skills, but she's got to retake the written coming up in the next couple weeks. Shalini Omar is testing on January 27th, so good vibes. And Jessica Landers is testing in about 2 weeks. So good luck to all of you. We're super, super excited and so happy to be part of your journey. So guys, this one ran a little bit long. Sorry about that, but a lot to talk about. I hope you have a fantastic rest of the week. Make sure you spread some sunshine everywhere you go. And until next time, happy caregiving.